First of all, this is a disclaimer. The opinions shared here might be triggering to some people. We will debase every single one of the major diets in this video. So keep in mind that we are not nutritionists and we don't claim to be. Take everything here with a grain of salt. End of disclaimer. In our world today, the idea of food and diet has warped and distorted from food as fuel to food as an idea. We don't just eat the food for sustenance anymore, we eat ideas. Vegan, carnivore, keto, raw are no longer just nutritional choices, but badges of belief and expressions of identity. In our modern world, food has become a stand-in for morality, a replacement for God, and even a tool for control. We photograph it, moralize it, optimize it. And behind all of it is the same suppressed yearning to be good, safe and in control, or in other words, the need to exist securely. But in reality, none of these identities are stable in any way whatsoever. The perfect way to eat is just the ego's latest disguise, promising safety in exchange for obedience, much like any modern government. But, and this is the important part, there is no you to be saved by some perfect diet. All there is only awareness in which all the different thoughts and concepts around food show up and pass. Even the hunger for health is rooted in the illusion of being a separate self. Furthermore, the world we live in today makes it basically impossible to eat the perfect food because the soil is demineralized beyond repair. The air is polluted with all kinds of toxins and our water is extremely denatured. And still, you are an animal, even if some people paradoxically think themselves to be more than that. You are still a biological being. Just as a cow doesn't deliberate over veganism and a lion doesn't journal about macros, humans too come with a blueprint. And mind you, it's a physiological, not ideological, way of eating. How and what we eat influences the mind too. Start eating the standard American diet and see your depression levels rise. But instead of listening to instinct, we've outsourced nourishment to belief systems. So now let's see what happens when we debase every single diet. Veganism is often framed as the ethical pinnacle of modern eating. Purity, compassion, ahimsa, a life lived without harming others. On the surface, it seems admirable, and precisely because of that feeling, the ego loves it. It becomes a way to feel elevated. I am a good person because I do not harm. That single sentence divides the world instantly into the righteous and the misguided. A moral hierarchy is born. What began as caring slips into separation, superiority, and a curated sense of holiness. Biologically, the human body doesn't respond to moral narratives. It responds to nourishment. Plants simply do not contain over 15 essential micronutrients that human physiology requires, and these nutrients are only found in animal foods. No amount of mixing foods for optimal absorption is going to solve that problem. Sure, you can try to balance your bad diet with supplements, but the thing is, we don't actually understand how micronutrients are produced in their natural biological context. We extract them from unknown environments, synthesize them in labs with super toxic processes and chemicals, isolate them and bottle them. Then we call them supplements. But a supplement is essentially a chemical fragment without its living context, something the body recognizes as foreign. At best, they do nothing. At worst, they add to the toxic load. Vegans depend on them, and this dependence becomes a kind of slow-motion car crash. The body is degrading while the ideology demands continued loyalty to the cause. Yet even this suffering has a strange logic to it. The vegan identity is simply another attempt to be someone, nothing more than a thought. But the one who wants to be pure is also just a passing story. So, Are you someone that believes fat to be some form of backup fuel? Sorry, but there is a fat chance of that being true. Pun intended. It's actually the body's main reserve. Why else would we store it on our body? Long before agriculture, humans relied on it to survive. And contrary to popular belief, the body doesn't fall apart when it has no dietary carbohydrates. It remembers and begins converting fat into ketones, which nourish the brain and stabilize energy with a calm, lasting burn. Nothing artificial is needed. No supplement, no stimulant. Just absence, and then clarity. This isn't willpower. You're not instructing your liver to make ketones. You're not the one balancing electrolytes or regulating insulin. The body does this without asking. It adapts and then repairs. And all of this happens without a central commander. That's what's most confronting. Keto reveals there was never anyone doing the eating to begin with. And no, this doesn't mean zero carbs. Just low enough that the body stops depending on them. Where people get confused is in thinking keto is a set of rules to enforce, but rules imply a ruler. When the body is given space, it doesn't need ideology. It operates from memory deeper than thought. In that sense, keto only exposes that you never had any control. The Okinawan diet is often held up like some ancient scroll of health wisdom. Sweet potatoes, a bit of fish, fermented soy, vegetables, low calories, and a cultural habit of eating until 80% full called hara hachibu. And on paper, it looks good, almost enlightened even. But why do we hold it in such high regard? Because we hope that if we eat like them, we might live forever, or at least long enough to outpace decay. But who exactly is trying to live longer? And what would you do with more years if every one of them is spent micromanaging your plate and your life? Okinawa's historical health was about community, movement, natural living and low stress, not just about food. And guess what? None of these you can package into a diet plan. Today, most Okinawans eat processed food and have rising disease rates because the deeper structure that held it all together has disappeared. Meanwhile, modern health seekers mimic the food while sitting alone in cities, measuring out imported purple yams like sacred relics. They're now only eating for escape. And even if you succeed, what's been extended? A body, yes, but also the fantasy that time can save you from yourself. Paleo sounds simple on paper. Eat what humans ate before farming. Meat, roots, seasonal fruit, but no grains and most definitely no seed oils. Just food that makes biological sense. And in many ways it does. The body digests animal fat and protein with ease. Industrial food is clearly out of sync with our physiology. But then comes the story that you're somehow reconnecting to something purer, that by rejecting bread you're recovering freedom, that ancestral eating is the path to wholeness. It becomes less about nourishment and more about orientation, as if the past holds the key. The thing is though, the past isn't here. It's really nothing more than a concept, a theory. The Paleolithic human you imagine is stitched together from documentaries, Reddit threads, and butcher shops. Only your idea of him exists. The food might be helpful, but chasing an image of how you think humans used to eat doesn't make you more human. Even the food we call paleo today is grown, transported, and often sprayed. Wildness comes only from presence, and the more you try to recreate some long-lost condition, the further you move from what's happening right now. Now let's take a look at fasting. It promises clarity, no food, no noise, just stillness. For some, it feels like a return to the essential. The mind slows, the senses sharpen, hunger becomes a signal fire. But it doesn't take long before simplicity turns into strategy. The hours get counted, the benefits charted, the mental rewards anticipated. I'm more focused, I sleep better. Fasting becomes just another system again, with the emptiness being a tactic now. There's also a quiet confusion baked into the logic. If less is good, maybe none is best, but the body isn't designed for constant subtraction. It needs minerals, fat, enzymes, nourishment to function correctly. Yes, calories in versus calories out works, but only because you are starving yourself. Before long, you're going to feel extremely bad. Too much fasting for too long becomes depletion, which presents itself as devotion. Digestion slows, hormones misfire, and mental clarity fades into a strange floaty dullness. There's a difference between resting the body and withholding from it. One is intelligent, the other is compensating. What fasting accidentally reveals is that eating was never the problem. The mind just doesn't know how to be fed without trying to make it mean something. The Mediterranean diet is the intellectual's favorite. Not too extreme, not too indulgent. Olive oil, fish, vegetables, wine in moderation. The food of people who seem to have figured it out. It signals a life in order, cultured, calm, reasonable. But the appeal is aesthetic, not just health. It offers a portrait of the good life, as in sunlit tables, measured portions and laughter over lentils. And in a world full of dietary noise, it becomes the polished middle ground, because it feels like it's harder to criticize. Yet underneath that balance is often a need for avoidance. It's easy to follow a moderate diet while avoiding discomfort. Easy to sip red wine and feel aligned while the gut silently bloats. The body is calm until it isn't. But moderation protects the illusion, because nothing looks obviously wrong. It's not that the food is flawed. It's that balance, when used as a shield, becomes a kind of sleep. You stop listening because nothing screams. But absence of crisis doesn't mean presence of truth. A diet that flatters the mind won't necessarily nourish the body. And harmony, when forced, becomes just another pose. There's something undeniably appealing about meat and nothing else. No tracking, no fiber, no confusion. Just salt, fat, protein, and results. In a world overloaded with variables, the carnivore approach slices through the noise like a blade. People often report rapid relief. Digestion clears, inflammation drops, skin heals, and the mind gets quiet. And yet, the deeper appeal isn't always physical. There's also a desire to eliminate doubt itself. No plants, no ambiguity. It feels final, resolved, like you finally escaped the chaos of modern food. But when simplicity becomes the rule, every deviation feels like contamination. Even a strawberry becomes suspect. And slowly, the space for spontaneity disappears. Biologically, cutting out irritants makes sense, especially for those dealing with autoimmunity or chronic inflammation. But healing isn't the same as reduction. A strong body isn't built on avoidance alone. The deeper question isn't whether meat is good or bad. It's what you think you're protecting by narrowing the field so far. When food becomes a wall, what's being kept out? And what's being kept in? At this point, you might feel like everything is wrong. Words like clean, natural, or balanced, or even healthy can be stretched until they lose all meaning or quietly point in the wrong direction. If there's confusion now, it only shows how thick the noise has become. After trying purity, control, tradition, balance, emptiness, and simplicity, something becomes clear. Most diets aren't really about food. They're about the stories we wrap around it. Stories of virtue, safety, longevity, and control. But while beliefs clash and ideals change, the body doesn't join the debate. It either functions or it doesn't. Still, people argue, constantly, that raw meat is dangerous, that butter clogs arteries, that eggs carry salmonella, that milk must be sterilized. But how much of that is seen directly? And how much is second-hand fear, inherited from a system that sells certainty for profit? Just think back to the 1960s, when even doctors were endorsing cigarettes between surgeries. Authority has never guaranteed accuracy, especially when comfort and compliance are more profitable than truth. What if all that noise, all the labels, fears, and ideologies never actually belonged to you? What if you were just the space where it all appeared? Could it be that real nourishment doesn't come from the mind at all, that the body already knows and always knew, long before the first dietary guideline, long before the first belief? And if eating happens, digestion happens, energy rises and falls, without anyone doing it, then what exactly are you trying to manage? Maybe it's not about finding the right food, but about noticing there's no one left who needs to. If what was said here resonated, you might want to look a little deeper. We've put together a digital retreat that doesn't just talk about non-duality, but is designed to bring you face to face with what's already here. It's structured to help change things from abstract understanding into direct clarity, using meditations, teachings, and specific pointers to strip away what isn't needed. If that sounds like something worth exploring, you'll find the link in the description. There's also a free guided self-inquiry on the channel, which might be more than enough.